there is a price, but it's worth it. And it's hard. And sometimes like it's not the comfortable thing, and your flesh wants all this other stuff, but it's like, Jesus, you're worth it. And just because my happiness doesn't align with this decision, it doesn't mean it's not what God is asking me. Like, yeah, because I think we can get happiness confused with the will of God, and they don't always align.
Hello and welcome to the Christians Who Date podcast. I'm Andrea Alley, and I'm sitting here with Kalli Christopherson.
Hello.
And Lauren Bordeek.
What's up?
And my hair looks good today, so I hope that we post this video.
Mine, I just worked out, so I'm like slicked back, girl. So Dre, you look amazing. Kalli, you do too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Come as you are on this podcast, I like to say.
Yeah, it's true. And Lauren, you're a freaking babe.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Let's go podcast.
It's true. I'm sure there were a lot of gym eyes at the gym today.
Oh, of course.
Oh gosh.
Of course, the gym eyes.
The gym eyes. I don't even talk about that, but I love that idea. But I think everyone's almost married or in a relationship, so I hope no gym eyes at my gym.
Okay, never mind. I'm sure
anyways,
everyone's eyes were pure.
Not looking at me. So anyways, continue, Andrea.
They're only looking at you for workout related reasons.
Yeah.
They were feeling inspired for sure.
They're like, what move must I do now? Yeah.
Honestly, we did back squats today, Kalli, so you are prophetic.
I knew
you
it.
are prophetic.
I felt it. Thank you.
She knew it.
Oh my goodness.
You've got that post back squat glow.
That's awesome. That's just like some oily face I have, but that made me feel better about myself.
The dewy look, if you will.
As I like downed
so dewy.
So much food before I just got on here. I was like stuffing cheese sticks and yogurt in my mouth. So.
Honestly, you look like me just stepping outside in Austin right now because it's so humid.
Oh, it's so humid.
So bad.
Just instant dew.
We are in the thick of summer right now. So the
thick of it. Kalli, were you going to say something?
I don't even remember what I was going to say, but bless you in that heat. It gets to be 90 here, and I'm like dying, so I don't know how you do it.
I know. Montana girl. She doesn't even get it, Dre,
right.
Like us.
She doesn't.
LA,
I know.
Okay.
It's true.
I've done my time. I lived in Redding, California.
You
have
Redding.
Honestly,
Redding's no joke.
Awful.
And no air conditioning because none of us could afford air conditioning. So, you know what I mean?
Also, why is it so many people don't have AC in their cars in Redding? Like, I just saw someone's story the other day, and she's like, I don't know.
Because we were poor.
AC in my car, but she's not poor. I was like,
okay, then that is her choice. That should not ever be a thing.
Yeah.
Lauren, sorry. Kalli, I don't know if you should judge anybody's car in Redding right now. Because
oh my gosh. Savage, right?
Lauren, it was bad at the end.
It was really bad. My car would shake sometimes while it was
my goodness. That is not safe.
Literally just start shaking back and forth. It was terrifying.
Okay, like the time is now for a new car. When there's a shaking.
That was the end. That was the end for good old Samantha.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Samantha. Well, speaking of Samantha, Dre, what are we talking about today?
Oh, wow. What a segue. What a segue.
So smooth.
Thank you. It's like my dating.
Yeah.
My dating is real
just
smooth.
like your dating.
Yep. Just like her dating.
That's how I divert the conversation in a dating relationship. I'm like, Samantha, what are you? So.
Today we are diving into just scratching the surface, really. I feel like of some hot topics. We are going to talk about Christian dating versus cultural dating.
Ooh.
Spicy.
I'm not a theologian, even though sometimes I will say I nerd out a little bit.
We call you the theologian amidst our friend group.
Absolutely.
I sometimes can take a deep dive into theology from time to time, but I'm not prepared, to launch into a full theological explanation of everything right now. But we did just want to talk, like, from our own experience, how it has looked different for us as Christians who date. See what I did there?
Yeah, thank you.
So clever. In case people forgot the name of this
versus,
podcast.
maybe. Wait, what, Cal?
I said, in case people forgot the name of this podcast.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Because we are the Christians who date. But how does it look different? How has it looked different from or for us from maybe like what you would see on TV shows or movies, or just like out there in culture? If people like, well, I don't know. I was going to say if people don't consider themselves Christians, but you get a spectrum. There's a spectrum of people who consider themselves Christians and like how that actually plays out in their lives. So we're going to talk about how it's played out in our lives and our dating, because a big thing for us is that we don't just date, but we date according to our values. So,
yeah,
I was just going to start and say like how it, I don't know, basically looks for me, and then you guys can add. But
yeah,
I feel like how I usually even express it to guys, which if you meet someone at church that you kind of know, it's kind of different. But I feel like on the apps is when I really have to define it, is because I'm like, I don't know where these people are coming from.
No, it's so real.
Yeah. So I'll say, hey, just so you know, like one of my values is that I won't sleep with anyone or live with anyone until I'm married. That's something that I believe is laid out in the Bible, and it's something that I've stood by, and it's something that I would like whoever I'm in a relationship with to also stand by. And so I feel like that's the main thing for me. Is there anything you guys want to add just to give like an overview, and then we'll dig in a little deeper?
Oh, yeah. I mean, for me, and Dre, I'm guessing you probably don't, maybe you do say that straight up. I usually wait like a couple days. So I think it depends on the person. But I'm always like, do you have a relationship with Jesus? Like, and that is, and I think I'm wondering like where the relationship with Jesus, which usually takes a couple dates or a couple conversations to kind of navigate, like, where are you at in your journey with God? What do you believe about scripture? And then I'm usually wondering like what they think about women in the church. Like, so some of my personal values, what they think about like dating as a Christian looks like. I mean, I could keep going, but Kalli, I'll bounce it over to you.
Pretty much I would echo the same thing you guys did. Sexual purity, like waiting till marriage. Won't live with anyone unless we're married. And then, really just figuring out where they are with God, because like Andrea said, on the apps, so many people put Christian and then you sit down and start talking and you're like, wait, what? Like, I'll just share a quick story. I went on this date with this guy who said he was a Christian on the app. And I think we had even talked about like something we both shared in common was that we were both pastors' kids. And so on this date, we were talking about that. And it turns out he has like all this church hurt and hates the church now and is like, wants nothing to do with it. But he's like, but I still like hold, those values, but I just believe these other things too. And so I was like, oh, we have very different definitions of what a Christian is. And so I was like, well, that was a date and there won't be any more. So exactly. Just finding out where they are with the Lord, and then their values as far as like physical stuff and living together. I'd say those are the three big ones.
Yeah, for sure.
I was just going to say, that's a good point. With dating, you don't have to like lay it all out there on the first date or in the messages like I joked that I do, because it's really like I feel like it's like baby steps. So that's a good way to think about it, is what you guys said. Like at first you're just trying to figure out like, okay, do you even call yourself a Christian? If you do, great. You know, some people haven't even made it past that part for me. So but if you call yourself a Christian, great. What does that mean to you, like, you know, church wise? Like, do you go regularly? Is it, you know, do you have a good relationship with the church, or do you have like a ton of hurt and you don't want anything to do with it anymore? So there's all these like lower level questions that you can ask before you launch into like your views on sexual purity.
Yeah.
And that's just like a normal part of building a relationship, so that not every single guy that you run across has to know like your whole story or like where you stand on stuff that's, you know, maybe more personal depending on the person, like how much you want to share. But anyway, so yeah.
No, that's really good. I think that's what I found. I mean, just from dating different Christian guys, I'm first like, where are they at with God? Because usually that can actually give me a better gauge of then where they're going to be when it comes to their physical, sexual boundaries and all of that. And so the more that I'm understanding through those first couple dates or conversations, like where they're at with God and their community and their personal relationship with Jesus and what they believe about scripture. And again, some of these things like just come like more naturally because I've been like in community with them when I've dated. But if I don't know anything about them, those first couple of dates, like I'm diving into that in just natural ways. Like even it was really sweet. I went on a couple of dates with a guy, and I knew he was a Christian. We were talking about God, and we had some really great like other things in common. So our first date was like getting food. You know, he prayed. It was really sweet. We talked about like our relationship with God, and then he was like, "Would you ever want to go on like a date to?" We go to like a church that's like in the middle of where we lived, because he lived a little further away from me. We'll go to this church, and then we can like go and like go on a hike afterwards. And it was like really cool. Like one of our dates was going to a church together and worshiping, and we didn't go on another day after that day. After that day, we're kind of like, yeah, we're not like it's like meant for each other. But it was like cool it was a cool like opportunity. I was like, oh, he's initiating like, let's go worship together. Like I'm just like, oh, that's great. Like that just was really impressive to me of like, oh, this is something that you value, that I value as well. So that helped me. We never even got into the physical boundaries because we didn't get to that point of like needing to, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's not necessary.
It wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. I feel like that would be more when I'm like, oh, I really like want to kiss you, and or if we kiss, and then I'm like, okay, we need to talk about some things.
Yeah.
So yeah,
some stuff to establish.
Yes, definitely. So
yeah. Well, Lauren, did you want to kick us off? Maybe like you kind of started a little bit, but share a little bit more. Like, what has it looked like for you to be a Christian who dates specifically and like live according and date according to your values?
Oh my goodness, totally. And I mean, it's been a journey over the years, because I think there's been times where it was just like, okay, I'm gonna find the most on fire for Jesus guy like me, and almost like he needs to be the clone of me. And then I think over the years, I mean, there was years I got jaded a little bit from Christian dating. I'm like, oh, I've like waited and I haven't found it, so I need to maybe lower my stakes and like try to not be with somebody that like isn't as love with Jesus, and maybe they will. And so I've had these like different years of like really high standards, lowering my standards, and then now I think there's been more of like an evening happening of just realizing like nobody's like perfect. I might not like be with someone who's like gonna go save thousands of people, but is there someone that has like a golden heart, I call it, where they have like a golden heart for God?
Yeah.
And I know it gets me too, but I'm like, no, I want someone who has like the solid character of like the love of God. And so two things that I think that's like helped me in helping my like kind of like what it means to be a Christian who dates is, one of them is Romans 12:1 and 2 has like guided me throughout the years. And so I'll read it real quick and then I'll explain. really all of Romans 12 is like amazing, but this is NIV version. It says, therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. And so I just realized like my life is not my own. And the Bible does not talk about dating per se, but it talks a lot about relationships. It talks a lot about like our relationship with God and how to love others, how to love ourselves. And then also it does talk about sexuality and marriage. So Romans 12 helped me realize like I have to live a life of love, and my body, my life is not my own, it's God's, and it's to be holy and pleasing. And we're in a culture and day and age that really does whatever it wants. It's not to follow God. Like everything, like we're kind of going upstream when we follow God, and everything's trying to pull us downstream. And so I think what's helped me with renewing my mind is, I mean, scripture, church, community, confession, you know, just figuring out like, how do I do this well? I cannot do it on my own. And I'm like, God, you're going to have to help me, because really I don't want to follow you at times. And I don't want to date the way you want me to date, or I want to do what I want to do like all the time. So it's this continual daily surrender. And some seasons of life are easier where I feel like super strong in my like convictions. And then there's others where I'm like, I just feel super weak and I want to do whatever I want to do. And so definitely have not been perfect in this, but I think the more I'm like rooting myself in God, the more that I'm like finding I'm like, I can work, like wait. Because I think the older I get, I'm like, oh, I've waited so many years. I'm just tired, God. Like, and we've talked about that. That's why we're starting this podcast, is like, we just feel tired of waiting for God's best. Maybe there's not a best. Maybe there's nobody. Like, and it's still, I'm saying I'm going to choose you, even if like I don't get what I want, which is maybe like marriage and romance and a family. Because like God always will be the ultimate prize. And so I think Romans 12 has been huge. And then can I share the other thing that's been really helpful for me?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, cool. I feel like it's like show and tell day today. This book,
bring your props.
Sounds funny. I know, literally I do. So
we'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, Loveology by John Mark Comer. It has, oh my gosh, it's been it's like a game changer for me when it comes to like how I think about dating and marriage. It was just, it gave me like a format, which I'm brainy and academic, and I just love like, okay, it just gave me a template of like my vision for marriage through my dating life. And so basically John Mark Comer lays out like through scripture, he's just saying like, okay, the point of marriage, which you look for in whoever you're dating, is like, can you be friends with that person, first of all? So like, can I be friends with the person I'm dating? And then number two, can like you be on mission with them? Like, can you actually build God's kingdom with that person? And so that helped me be like, oh, this is something that's shared. It's not just about like what God's calling me to. Like, can I support that person I'm dating, who maybe I can marry, supporting their mission of what God's doing in their life?
Yeah.
And then number three, it talks about like, is there romance? Is there intimacy between you and that person? I think we've all dated guys where we're like, you're a great friend, you love Jesus, but I'm not attracted to you. And you can't force that. Like, it's just like, you got to have the attraction and the romance piece. That's huge. And then number four is, could you see yourself building a family with them, like to co-create? And now, not all of us are going to be fortunate to co-create in the sense of children, but could you actually see yourself creating with them, even like life, or creating a family, whether it be your community around you, like the church, or friendships or relationships, or building into your own family? So even like, could you see yourself co-creating with that person? And so just those four things have been so helpful for me when I come to dating, because I'm in the back of my mind kind of just starting to think through, not again checking off the list, but just like, oh, am I friends with them? Am I attracted to them? Like, do I see like that we both could like follow God together? And then eventually like, oh, could I see myself like having a family with them and co-creating community? So yeah, those are a couple of things that have like really helped me when it becomes like being a Christian. But yeah, Kalli, I would love to hear your thoughts on what it means for you specifically.
Yes. Well, also before I say what I want to say, I just wondered if you maybe had a story or an example of like going on a date with somebody and like just getting to know them and like, I don't even know, it could be anything, but like figuring out along the way, like, okay, like I don't think we're going to continue dating, but just like kind of talking about the elements that you brought into of like, oh, could I see like friendship? Could I see romance? Could I see all these things coming together and like going somewhere? I would just love to hear if you have any of those stories.
What does it look like out in the wild?
Out in the wild. I mean, I love to base dating off of fun, first of all. So a lot of my dates are, I mean, some of them are dinners, but I'm like, let's go on a run, let's hike, whatever. And so then through conversation, I'm just asking like questions and try not to keep it too deep, like at first. Like I feel like you have to earn depth and trust.
Yeah,
but I'll just
good.
listen to what they're saying. I'm like, well, people, I don't know, the more you listen and ask a question or two, people like bare their hearts and you're like, whoa, you shared a lot with me. So specifically, I'm trying to think of like, so you're asking like specifically like a dating situation where maybe it was like date 1 or 2. And then I was like, I don't think this will go further, but like there's some great things going on.
Or even like, I know I'm trying to make the question better, but basically
I think
like
any example.
But like maybe if you like were dating someone and you could see like, oh yeah, these stages, like we're like on the same page, but then maybe got to a certain one and you're like, oh, actually, I don't think this is going to continue because of whatever reason.
Yeah. I mean, I think there is someone who I was dating for a while and they like, I got to a point where I was like, it's so fun to be with you. You're one of my best friends. I'm so romantically attracted to you. We have great chemistry. I could see us like building a family, but we were not on the same page with Jesus, like at all. And I saw myself becoming a lesser version of my love for God. Not saying you can blame that fully on that person. That's not the case. Like you have to own your relationship with God. But I did not see them pushing themselves towards God or me. And it was like kind of like I was like trying to pull us up a hill and that person was just dragging us back down and it was like a tug of war. And I was like, oh, this is going to be the rest of our lives at this point. And I've dated you enough to know that because I gave it a while. Yeah. And I think that's when I realized I was like, oh, I can't continue. We have those 3 out of the 4 elements, but actually the most important element value is like Jesus. And that has to be so owned by that person. And I felt specifically for that person, I was becoming kind of like their God spot, I call it, or like I was making them happy. And instead of like God fulfilling them. And that's a ton of pressure, which I think we try to do with someone we're romantically involved with. We try to put them in our God spot and we just try to make them like and Andrea's talked about this, but like codependent, and so we have to have God be the first, or it's really dating and marriage is just not going to work, period. And maybe that's another thing about Christian dating. I was like, if you don't have Jesus, like, I don't know how you guys do it. So but I think that's probably what was the biggest thing. And then I knew like we have to end this. And it was really hard to say because it's hard to like be that vulnerable and honest. I tried to say it as like gently and kindly as possible. But yeah, it ended up being just we weren't on the same page when it came to our relationship with God. So hopefully that helps a little bit. But Kalli, I would love to hear a little bit of your story of how you define dating as a Christian.
Yes. So I would say, like we've talked about, cultural dating versus like Christian dating. And I would say that it's looked like dating with long-term vision, not just like short-lived pleasure. I'd say that's been like the biggest thing that I've seen in my life. So cultural dating is all about like the here and now. Like I want immediate gratification. Like people are, having sex on the first date or, a couple dates down the road. It's all about like, how can I get my needs met? And also like, I'm maybe with somebody for a time, but if there's a better option that comes along, like I'm going with that better option. Like there's literally TV shows where that's like the plot of the TV show is to like upgrade your way through and like make sure you get chosen type of thing. And really, like Christian dating is like the opposite of that. It's about like choosing someone, which I mean, this is more, I guess, marriage talk, but like choosing someone consistently, even if you don't feel it. But for me, probably the biggest thing that has separated me from someone who culturally dates is physical purity. And I term it physical purity because purity in itself is so much more than physical, like sexual. I think purity is like a mentality, it's an outlook. The Bible has a lot to say about the subject in general, but a big portion of it is sexual. And just a second. Yeah. So for culture, I would say that there's so much emphasis on doing things quickly, on like just like making decisions without really thinking about the ramifications. And really, the church can lean pretty far into like the seriousness of a relationship, and culture leans the opposite way into like, oh, whatever, it's casual, it's not a big deal. So really, it's about like where is the balance? Like what does the Bible say? Like what does the church say? And just trying to figure out like, how do I love Jesus? How do I have standards, and how do I walk this out in my life? For myself, like when I've had conversations with people about like dating or purity, a question that will come up pretty often from people that aren't following like the Christian dating is like, oh, like, well, like, what are your views on sex? And I tell them, I'm like, yeah, I'm saving that for marriage. And I've actually only had positive reactions from people.
Wow.
It's been really amazing and surprising because culture will tell you like that somehow that means you're less desirable, less attractive, you're not worth as much. But really, I've had so many people tell me like, oh, that's really cool, and I wish that I had done that. So it's been really amazing to just see like the difference, because yeah, it's just not the narrative that's being spread out there. And so yeah, that's a couple things. A verse that has really spoken to me is Proverbs 16:17, and it's from the Passion Translation, but it says, protect purity and you protect your life. And for me, I was like, this is massive, because people do just treat purity like it's like old fashioned or like whatever, but it is like literally protecting your life. And so just having a value for it. And yeah, I think it affects so much of your life. And I think there's so much to say on the subject, but that for me has probably been the biggest thing so far when it comes to cultural dating versus Christian dating. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kalli,
love that.
Kalli, you've mentioned before a little bit about this, and I actually like love the way you shared this. Is like, can you share a little bit about like your view of purity in relation to like God? Because I think a lot of people will be like, God hates us. Like that's why he controls us, and like we can't enjoy
killer
sex. Yeah, we can't enjoy sex until we're married. And, like, can you explain like a little bit of your perspective of God when it comes to his desire for purity?
Yeah, totally. So my view of God is that God is good, and therefore what he lines out in the Bible is for my benefit. It's for my good. Like he's a good dad. And so if he tells me something that I'm not supposed to do, it's not because he's like, I don't want you to have fun, or like you're like, I'm trying to get this out of your life for no reason. Like there is a reason. And I'm like, if I think about it, I'm like, okay, you are the God of the universe. You've created everything. You see everything. I do not. And so if you tell me like, hey, don't do this because it's going to hurt you, actually, I'm going to trust that he knows best. And I'm like, I'm just this person who's lived 30 years on this earth. Like, what do I know in comparison to God? And so I'm going to trust him. And even if at times maybe that's not what I want to do, I'm like, well, ultimately, like, I answer to you, and I'm going to trust that you know more than me. And so what you say goes in my life. And so just trusting that he loves me, and that, yeah, he wants the absolute best for me. Even if I think I know better, I don't. So those are my thoughts. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks.
So good, Cal.
Yes.
Do you have any stories? Oh, yeah. I was going to ask you if you have any stories.
Oh, yeah. Any
of
stories?
How this has looked out in the wild among the men.
Among the men. I have a couple. I'm trying to think of which one would
a couple
be a
she
good
says.
fit. A few.
Let me look at the book.
Bouncing around in the queue. No, I can think of one. I was on a date with this guy, and we'd like been chatting for like, I don't know, like a month or something, and we're on a date, and this topic ends up coming up kind of randomly. And so I just ask him, I'm like, yeah, well, okay, like what are your views on like sexual purity? And he's like, I'm like, do you have like a value for it? And he's like, well, yeah, but, and then he kind of goes into this whole thing of why he actually doesn't really value it. And essentially he had just had like a lot of struggles with maintaining sexual purity. So he was kind of like, if the person I'm with, if that's something they value, like I'll try, like I'll make an effort, but like, you know, eventually it just kind of like ends up happening. And I was like, wow, like, okay. And so that just it told me a lot. Like, it wasn't something he valued enough in his own life. And I was like, if I were to continue getting to know this guy, like, it would be something like I would have to fight for on my own. And that would just be like so awful. And like, that'd be so much pressure on me. And I'm like, it's not only that, it's like, I want someone who values this like in their life for themselves. I don't want to just be like, okay, well, it's fine that you don't value it, but I value it. Like, I'm like, no, this is something I need the other person I'm with to also value for themselves. So there's a neat little story.
Very bold as well. I'm always like, Callie's so bold.
Dude, yeah.
Let's talk about sex,
being direct.
So direct. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm like, let's go.
Sex, baby.
Let's talk about you and me.
I also asked if he looked at porn, and he told me he did. And I was like, thank you for being honest.
Actually, I totally have done that with guys too. Once I'm like,
because
I'm like,
eventually,
anyways, I'll have a whole episode on porn, as in, you know, if to watch it or not, which we say no, if you're wondering. Plot twist.
Really didn't know where it was going. Oh man.
Oh god.
Anyways,
okay,
Andrea, tell us, what does it look like
tell us
for
about
you?
Porn, Andrea.
Tell us.
That'd be hilarious if we like are strict.
Strict on sex, but not
we're
strict on porn.
On all this other stuff, but we're like, porn, do what you want.
Never.
I'm dead. Oh gosh.
Oh man.
I'm like blushing. Even saying that.
Just even thinking about that.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry, Mom. It was a joke, okay?
Oh my gosh.
Don't watch it. We'll explain why later.
I feel like interning for Moral Rev did help me have like a straight face though. Like I feel like people could confess anything and I'm on a date and I'm like, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Inside you're like,
tell me more about that.
Inside I'm like, we're gonna wrap this up and be done here. But anyway.
And never go on another date.
Wait, you said ice cream? Okay, we'll get ice cream first.
I'm gonna shoot over some recommended resources for you.
Oh my god.
Oh man.
So good. Okay. Dre, tell us a little bit about what it means to be a Christian who dates.
A Christian who dates, man. Well, I feel like I was getting a little fired up while Kalli was talking about purity, because
Feel
like
free. Talk about it.
even though the word itself, I feel like carries maybe some baggage. Like
people get triggered.
Oh, they do.
Yeah,
I know.
they do.
Like the principle of it, like I really just I think is so beautiful as well. And I was thinking about even being a teenager, and I don't know, like my dad would make these jokes about like, yeah, if a guy comes over to date my daughter, like blah blah blah, like all the stuff he's gonna do, like to like make sure this kid like treats his daughter right, and like he would say, and he'd make all these jokes, and I'm like, Dad, like, no, don't do that, like I'm like, Dad, please, like whatever, you're not gonna do that. But like inside, the message that he was communicating to me was like, you're so valuable, like I'm like nobody better mess with my daughter. And I was like, I think I took it for granted maybe, but I'm like looking back like, wow, I like knew that my dad was just saw so much value in me. And that's the same thing I feel with God, and him saying like, no, your body is so valuable. And just like culture will tell you, it's worth nothing. Like it's worth somebody sliding into your DMs, or it's worth like somebody texting you at midnight, and or like meeting somebody casually at a bar, like, and or like culture will tell you if somebody buys you dinner, then you owe them something, and
Yeah.
and God just comes against all of that, and he's like, no, until somebody is ready to stand in front of your family and your friends and your community and everybody who cares about you and who's invested in your life up to this point and commit to you forever, like, then they're not worth like having you yet. And I just think that's so like, that's so beautiful. Like that's such a beautiful picture of like how much you're worth to God. Is he says, no, somebody better be willing to come and say, I will lay down my life for you. And he's like, that's when you're ready to have sex with this girl, like it's like, when the minute you're ready to die for her, then you're ready to have her body. And it's like, I just think about like, there's so much brokenness that comes from being outside of that, like, because you just get treated like crap. And people, I don't think always want to admit it, like I think culture makes you want to feel like, oh, it doesn't really matter. But it does. And it's like, I love that God gives us permission to admit that, like, no, it does matter. It matters. Like there's feelings involved, and I'm a human, and like all these, there are strings attached. Like no strings attached isn't real. So anyway, yeah, man, just to get off my soapbox, but I think it's so beautiful. And I'm a youth leader, and like I feel like I try to like tell the girls that like this is God being like telling you that you are worth this high price, and that you're so valuable, and a guy better be ready to die for you. Like,
yep.
So anyway, I just love that. That's kind of just why I love purity. And I think honestly, I'm not like great at boundaries, like in general. I try to like, I don't know. I think I'm naturally like try to go with the flow, and I want people to feel comfortable, and I'll kind of go with what they want. And so purity has required me to actually ask for what I deserve, and ask for what I'm worth, and set boundaries, and actually see, because if people don't respond well to your boundaries, that is information that you need to have. Like,
that's good.
If they are like, the second a guy like doesn't take it well, it's like, uh-oh, Like, because you're going to have boundaries inside of a marriage. Mm-hmm. You're going to have, you're going to have needs that are different from his needs. You're going to have conflicting things that you want, and you need to be able to honor each other. And it's just, there's so much underneath that. And purity is like a great way to bring to the surface what's going on a deeper level inside of him and you, both of you. So, anyway, I kind of feel like I'm on a tangent now, but
that's good. So I would love to hear a little bit, like, for you, Andrea, hypothetically, there's a guy and he was like, yep, I agree the same. Like, purity is a big deal. Like, we're not gonna have sex before marriage. Like, we're not gonna live together. What are the other things you're looking for in that dating relationship as a Christian?
Oh, like outside of like physical boundaries and stuff. Yeah. I would say similar to like what we said at the beginning. I guess you're looking for like, okay, is this someone who really loves Jesus to the point that their life is surrendered to him, and it looks like their life looks different from, just your average Joe Schmo out there. Like
Joe, if you're a schmo,
like, are they,
we bless you.
Are they teachable? Do they have men in their life that they're submitted to? Like, is somebody calling them out on stuff? Like, do they have other guys around them that know their crap? Because you guys know my crap.
So much crap.
She doesn't have much. She's basically perfect. So
Andrew's like squeaky clean.
I know. I'm like, you didn't clean your sheets the other day. Anyways.
Oh man. Thanks guys. But it's just like I'm looking for somebody that's humble, all the things like you were saying, Lauren. I want someone who has a good character, and it's not just because for the sake of having a good character, because that's what the Disney Channel taught us. It's because they're trying to become the person that God is calling them to be. So anyway,
I just really loved the Disney Channel.
I know that.
I love the Disney Channel reference for being humble. Yeah, so many humble Disney Channel people I can think of right
now. Oh my gosh, for sure. I love that. That's amazing.
I feel like they tried to teach some morals, back in the day, but I don't know.
Back in the day.
Yeah, back in our day.
Yes.
When it was Disney was like real good. Okay, wait, do you have a story, Dre, of like Christian dating?
Oh yeah, you know it. Yeah, so I guess the one that comes to mind is when I was first getting on the apps, I met a guy, and he his profile said he was Christian. I think I had it set to like just people that are Christian or whatever. And then our first phone conversation went really well, and then we met up in person for our first date, and it was a good date, but I could already tell on the date, like I was like, ooh, I don't think we're totally aligned on this, because he kind of alluded to like living with his serious girlfriends in the past. And so I was like, I was like, okay, we have some investigating to do here, because I didn't want to just write him off. I was like, I want to actually make sure that I'm right and I'm not just making assumptions here. So over the course of a couple dates, it became more clear to me like that we weren't on the same page about that specifically, and it wasn't just like a in his past thing. It was like he still believes that this is okay, and so I was like, okay, we're different on that. And we talked about it, and it was kind of like, it was like, okay, he maybe isn't submitted to the Bible, I guess, in the same way that I want to submit my life to the Bible. And with dating, it's like there's going to be plenty of people out there that can just be your boyfriend. Like there's a lot that you can just have fun with, go on some nice dates, like, share a meal and you'll have a great time. You could even hang out with his friends and be fine. But if you're dating with the idea of like, I'm trying to meet someone that I can spend the rest of my life with, like Lauren was saying, like, you don't want to have to be the one whose, you know, standard is like way up here and theirs is kind of down here, you know, like you don't want to be the one who's like, no, we're gonna like actually like whatever the Bible says, we're tied to that. If they don't want to live that way, you know, like it's just exhausting. And I think it creates all this tension. And anyway, and like Kalli was saying too, I was picturing like down the road, okay, I'm the only one that's going to be holding these like physical boundaries, and that's going to be really difficult to be the only one. Like, so anyway, yeah, so it ended up like not working out with him. And I remember a day, because he was a really great guy and we got along really well, and he was easy to talk to, very easy to connect with, like honestly seemed more quality than some of the Christians I had been around. And so I remember like walking around in our house, Kalli, when we used to live together, and just feeling like this, feeling this sadness. And I was like, oh, I'm feeling the weight of sacrifice right now. Like I'm feeling the weight of like, that cost me something. And sometimes I think that that's going to be a real thing that you feel. Like you're going to feel the weight of, oh, I sacrificed something. And it doesn't mean that it's not worth it, but it also doesn't mean that you're never going to feel sad, you know, or feel like you're missing out on something. But it's like Kalli said, you have that greater belief that God is good. And so maybe I don't feel it right now, like, you know, a week after, but 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road, I'm going to be thanking myself that I made decisions according to a God that I believe is good and that I believe is wise way beyond my 33 years on the earth, you know? So, yeah.
That's really good.
That's so good.
Thanks.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm proud of you guys. This isn't an easy
proud of
thing.
You guys. Yes. My gosh. Look at us.
Yeah.
Crushing it.
Yeah, it is, guys, man, if you don't have some friends around you like pumping you up, like go get some, because it's literally like Kalli and Lauren have been like a saving grace for me sometime to be able to like come back to them and be like, guys, I freaking let this guy go.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to speak to anybody listening to this podcast who has not done Christian dating but wants to. Maybe you're a new believer, or maybe you're just listening to this and you're like, no, actually I want to follow Christ and like give him all of me. Like I just feel like it's never too late to recommit to Jesus, like your dating life. And especially for any of you maybe who have had failed marriages and you're just trying to get back out there and date again, and you want to do it God's way. It's just like God is so for you, and he's so for us, and he's so for our hearts. Like he's the one that created romance. He's the one who created our hearts. He's the one who created intimacy and romance, ultimately marriage, like in family. Like it's all God's idea. And so God wants to be a part of it. Like he has people to be a part of it. You don't have to do it alone. But I just think there's so much hope for you to do it a different way if you want to invite God into it. Like God can totally help you, and like it's worth it. It's worth it in so many ways than just saying like, I'll just do whatever I want and hopefully it works. And so yeah, it's not easy. I don't think it's easy so far. But it's good. It's really beautiful. And when you even some of the guys I've dated who love the Lord, I'm like, oh, there's just so many like beautiful aspects that were of that, because I got to share Jesus, like the lover of my soul, with that person. And so that was like really, really sweet.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, just to like tack on to what you said, Lauren, like that is the gospel, is that it's not about like how you have done dating like up until this point. At any moment you can say like, God, I'm feeling this conviction or whatever, and I want to surrender my life to you. And moving forward, I want to live this out the way that you've designed it. And like, you get to be forgiven, like you get to be washed white as snow, like that's where all those verses come into play. So it's never like there's a point where you're too far gone or you've done too much, or I don't even care like the number of people that you've slept with. Like you get to literally, it's like you're at zero, like it's like you've lived the same way as anybody that has lived a pure lifestyle. Like that's what he died to give us. So that's available to you if you want it.
Random but fun question to ask you guys. Has it been worth it dating this way, in your opinion?
Good question, Cal. I would say it has been worth it for sure. And I'm 33, so that is no 22-year-old situation. But it's been worth it. If I had to do it over again, I would do it the same way. Like I would maybe get better at dating earlier, but as far as like living according to like what Jesus lays out for us and in the Bible and everything, like I would do that again.
Yeah, I think for me, if I'm honest, yes and no. But the thing is I say no because it's like my flesh just wants to do what I want to do because I think I'm like tired of waiting.
Yeah.
But yes, because I actually know there's no other way. Like for me, I'm so far gone in the love of God and committed to God and Jesus. Like I'm like, there's no going back. Like I just know like he's changed my life. Like I've seen myself so transformed, and I just am utterly 100% know like God's the best choice for my life. Like that's the purpose and reason. And so I think because of that, that's where I'm like, I will give you my yes, and I will continue to give you my yes. And if I fall on my face, I like repent and get back up. But like I ultimately know I'd rather be single than marry someone who's not like fully 100% like committed to Jesus. And so that's where I think I'm like that all or nothing of like, God, I'll wait. Or maybe you don't have somebody for me. Yeah. I hope. But I think I have to kind of continue to say like, God doesn't owe me anything. Like he's already given me his life. Like he doesn't owe me this like happy life of like the perfect Instagram marriage and family and all of that. Like I already have so much he's given me and I have him ultimately. And so I think that's like that has helped me be like, no, you're definitely worth the yes. Yeah. And even if at times I'm like, yeah, this isn't, I wish I could just, like Dre really hit it on the head. Like you could really date anybody. Like there's so many people you could date and possibly marry
and have a great time.
Yeah.
And have a great time. But it's like, there's so much more that we're aiming for when it comes to dating. So yeah. What about you, Kalli?
I was going to say, Kalli, turn that question around on yourself.
Well, we'll get it to me, but I just want to say like, Lauren, I love your honesty and your vulnerability and just what you touched on of like, God doesn't owe me anything. Like he's given me everything. And like, I think in this culture too, like happiness is like an idol in people's lives. And they're like, well, if I'm not happy, like, what am I doing? Like, that's the goal. And it's like, actually, that's not the goal of your life, like at all. Okay. This is the quote. It's from Beckett Cook.
Okay.
Following Jesus should cost us everything. If it hasn't, you're following the wrong Jesus. So, it's just like there is a price, but it's worth it. And it's hard. And sometimes like it's not the comfortable thing, and your flesh wants all this other stuff, but it's like, Jesus, you're worth it. And just because you're like, my happiness doesn't align with this decision, it doesn't mean it's not what God is asking me. Like, because I think we can get happiness confused with the will of God, and they don't always align. So just a side note. But anyways,
so good.
Yes.
What a great side note.
So the question, yes, it's been it's been absolutely worth it. My dating journey, there's been moments of pain. There's been moments of like confusion and like, I don't know what's going on and I'm upset, but I continually come back to like, Jesus, like you are everything to me. Like the point of my life is to be in a relationship with you.
Yeah.
And I want to be married and I want to have that, but like ultimately like you're it for me. And if these other things happen, like that's awesome, but that is not my goal in life. My goal in life is to serve you. And so I would, like you said, Andrea, I would do it all again. And I'm really proud of the decisions that I've made in my dating journey. And yeah, I'm expectant too. Like I do think God put this desire in our hearts for a reason. So I'm believing for the best. But yeah, I would do it all again.
So good. I'm so proud of you guys. I know I already said that, but still proud. And
we're trucking along.
I know.
We're doing
thankful to have you both as friends. And
yes.
Yeah. And just thankful that we could be real with each other and we know like who we are. Like you guys have both reminded me who I am at different points, and I've been so thankful for that. And so anyway, yeah. But not to get too sentimental.
Hearts of gold right here.
Hearts of gold right here. It's true. Yeah.
I've never used that phrase till today. Just a man of as a heart of gold,
Just
and you guys are like, oh,
I know.
It's true. Wow, it's precious.
That. Can you see that? Like posting on Facebook, looking for a man with a heart of gold.
Yeah,
like so cheesy.
I think it gets some interesting responses to that.
Yes, exactly. So good.
Man. Yeah. Okay. Well, if you tuned in, thanks for listening. We love you. We're with you. And if you have any questions, about anything we said, if you need to correct our theology, please let us know. I would love to hear that. And we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.